So my assigned topic for the evening, the journey of the soul. Is it the topic that brought you here, or just a general interest in spiritual things? How many people are here just for the topic? So it's primarily broader interest, okay? The journey of the soul. Actually, I don't like the word soul very much. And the reason I don't really like it so much is because in reality, most people have misconceptions or really not very clear idea what that means. If you ask someone to speak, even a religious teacher, to speak even for 5 minutes continuously about the soul, most people can't do it. In Sanskrit, they use the term, and in yogic philosophy broadly, they use the term Atma. This word Atma, it literally is translated as the self. And why that is really different than most people's idea of soul is because one of the most common statements about a soul, if people accept or believe in the existence of a soul, is people say, my soul, or I have a soul. Right? Or no? And of course that instantly poses this monumental question. If you have a soul, number one, who are you that owns or possesses this thing, and what exactly is it? Do you think that's a difficult idea to explain, or no? I think most people would have a hard time because they've never thought of that. There is this common sort of notion that the soul is perhaps like a source of energy, like a battery in a toy. You've got like the Energizer Bunny ads from way back when. Put the battery in and the bunny bangs the cymbals and walks and does whatever. But if you take the battery out, the bunny falls over and it's kind of useless. You look at the battery and it's kind of like, what am I going to do with that? That's kind of useless. But if I put it together, then I have something whole and complete. And this is the most common idea in relation to the soul. That's an idea that pretty much permeates at least the Western world. But in reality, this is a completely different idea than the very ancient spiritual teachings, not just of yoga, but of pretty much the entire, at least Eastern world. their understandings are considerably different. It's important to have this conversation because if we don't have clarity on this, the idea of a journey of the soul, could become quite confusing or misleading or not really provide what it is that we seek. When they describe this spiritual essence as being the self, who you actually are, that is like a whole different world, a whole different direction for life than the idea that the body which I have on is me. One of the principal things that we should understand in relation to the soul or the Atma, the spiritual component, that is the person. The body is not the person. And that's really apparent at the time of death. If you have anything to do with the body that has been left behind when the occupant has gone, it's instantly obvious that this is no longer a person. This is an empty shell that has been left behind. And my feeling of affection, my attraction, my desire for interaction quickly transforms and changes. Yet, for our entire life, we have practically all assumed that the identity of the body is my identity, who I am. So I identify as being young or old or middle age, as being male or female, identify with a racial group, an ethnic extraction, a nationality, all based upon this body which I will not inhabit for that long. The clock is ticking on that one. The body, the characteristic of the body is that it does not have life. The life that is manifest in the body is because of the presence of a spiritual being. That spiritual being imparts the energy of life to the body, but the body doesn't have its own life independent of the living being. The body is dead matter. And in this most amazing reality, that because of the proximity of the spiritual being to the body moves and does all these incredible things and actually behaves contrary to some of the fundamental laws of nature. I mean, one of the fundamental laws of nature is that matter tends towards more simple states. That's why when the living being goes, the body decomposes, it breaks down. But it won't do it while the living being is inside. The living being exerts that much influence. But we are almost completely oblivious to our eternal spiritual nature. We become absolutely wrapped up in that which is temporary. This is a great source of unhappiness and suffering for all living beings. One of the characteristics of the spiritual being or an Atma is life. In this world, we only fundamentally have two categories of energy: the material energy and another type of energy that is inherently spiritual. It is this spiritual energy that manifests the symptoms of life. The material energy never and cannot manifest symptoms of life. And so knowing that, that's the foundational reality. It brings into question, what is it that I describe or call my life? And we consider our life, using that term loosely, to be somewhat of a journey. But what we are actually describing is the journey of the body, not the journey of the soul. Most people, if you ask them to define what is your life, when you say your life, what's my life? And it's generally considered, if not from conception, at least from birth, up until your death, that this is what's described as your life. Correct? Well, I've got some news. That's not your life. That is just a series of events. A series of events, but it's not your life. You existed prior to having this body, and you will exist beyond the body. If I embrace that idea and consider that it's potentially true, then I would have to really question, so what was the value in all of these activities when they have a beginning and they come to an end? Relationships have a beginning and they come to an end. The very body itself has a beginning and it comes to an end. So what is the inherent value in that? It's quite difficult to place what is of value in that. Now, I'm probably saying some things that are quite challenging for some of you, if not many of you, quite challenging. And the subject is actually quite challenging because we have actually embraced something that is untrue. And we have made this the center of our focus and the center of all of our effort, our pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of love, the things that are really important. I have limited my attempt to fulfill these fundamental needs just through the agency of a body which is inherently not actually, doesn't have its own independent life, that will come to an end. We live in a time where the use of psychology in advertising, in the use of psychology to manipulate people, to make them do things, to breed addictions like to social media and things, is actually really terrible. And it's done through the reinforcing of ideas that are fundamentally untrue, but at the same time understanding, for instance, how the mind works and how the mind can be manipulated, how you can be made to do things that you wouldn't actually do if you were independently trying to make a decision, if you weren't uninfluenced. You wouldn't buy half the stuff you buy. You're told what to wear. You're told what is cool. You're told where happiness can be found. This is what advertising is all about. This is the message. And then people that are fundamentally empty are all sharing their selfies and images that are all just utterly fake. Just a pretense. I mean, it's astonishing. People can't even just eat their food without taking a picture of it. They got the saying, the phone eats first. People use this saying, like you're going to broadcast it to the world, as if everybody's actually interested. People are not that interested, except like, oh, yum, maybe I can find happiness here if I could have some of that too. That's pretty shallow. And so people wander through life. The body ages and begins to come unglued, to put it politely. If you want to study the reality of life, go and volunteer in a hospice or an old age home. Go and keep company with people that have run the course and are now at the end of it. I mean, is it a brilliant ending or what? Or no? Is this too serious? Are we okay? Huh? People are going to start throwing things at me. Now, the reason I am speaking to you quite strongly about these things is because it is my fervent wish and prayer that each of you can become actually happy, that you can live a life of meaning and great purpose, a life of deep joy, that you will experience actual peace, and that your death will be utterly fearless. It's just another thing. But to have that experience, you are going to have to do something substantially different from what you've been doing to date. Even if you are somewhat on the right course or generally heading in the right direction, you're going to have to up the game to have a wonderful experience, to have a life of profound fulfillment and great spiritual realization. And every single person is capable of it. Nobody is incapable. When people refer to the time between their birth and death as their life, such a person is living a life of great imbalance. It is completely out of whack. It's like you've been going to the gym and just working out one arm and one leg, and you've got massive muscles and the other one's all withered away. And really, a spiritual life and living a spiritual life does not mean a life of complete rejection of everything around you, but it means a life of great balance, a life of actual harmony. And so the cultivation of knowledge of the soul and to engage in activity that brings about an increasing experience, a reconnection with that deeper spiritual reality of who you truly are. I mean, we're so accustomed, like not just 100, it's like thousands of percent, if there is such a thing, in this realm of identifying the body as myself. And scientifically, even, this is not a reality. Firstly, your identity is consistent. Since the time you were a small child to the time you reach old age, it's the same person, correct? It's not like every year you become a different person, you change identity. No, you're still the same person. You can go through all kinds of changes. You can even have a sex change, and you're still the same person. You don't become another person. And it's like, well, what's going on there? What is that consistency? Where does your personhood lie? Your body, 98% of all the atoms in your body will change in a year. And many of them, it will change many times over within a year. Your body is constantly changing and transforming. But you remain the same person. And this is a big struggle for the scientific community. Where does that where does it lie? If I ask what is the difference between a dead body and a live body, what's a one-word answer or two-word answer? What is the difference? It's so unfortunate. We live in this really artificial society where we're really removed from the most natural processes that occur to all human beings. Almost no one witnesses a birth, and that's an astonishing astonishing thing to witness. It's like amazing. We almost never witness grave illness because everybody's whisked away to a hospital, and when you see them, it's just a head above the sheets. You don't get to see things that people go through. And death. It used to be that elder people lived with their children. And that was a dignified thing to do. And children felt a sense of responsibility. My parents provided me with this body. They took care of me for so many years. And now it is my turn to assist them at this most important point of their life, the point of death, and to be there with them and to assist them in this amazing experience, because it is really amazing. It's as amazing, if not more amazing, than birth. It's deeply emotional. It's really a profound experience. And when people lived in societies where these things were more common, you'll find that those type of people are far more grounded in their own life, in their idea and understanding of concepts like duty and responsibility, the idea of purpose, the idea of service to others. But we live in very selfish times where everybody wants to maximize their personal enjoyment and abandon any sense of responsibility or duty. I mean, if it's not entirely like that, it's on that trajectory. And it's very unfortunate because it allows us to live in a fantasy. A fantasy that this time between my life and the death of my body, this is my life. No. From the Vedic perspective, it goes back for all eternity. And after the death of the body, when the living being has gone, life continues. Life was not that time. Life is what you bring to that picture. You, the eternal spiritual being. You are the life. You are the source of life. The body is not life. The activities of the body don't constitute life. They're just a bunch of stuff that you do that doesn't truly fulfill you anyway. So the journey of the soul is actually the most noble undertaking of any human being. It is actually the purpose and reason for human life. Unlike in lower life forms, they do not have the faculty to question, who am I? Why am I here? What's this really for? Is it possible to actually become truly happy? Why do I have this craving for happiness? Why do I desire it? Anyway, what's wrong with being sad? Why do I desire love, to both love and to be loved? It is because the desire for happiness, the desire for love, to love and to be loved, are actually inherent characteristics of the soul itself. They are spiritual needs, not wants. They are deep spiritual needs. They are part of who you truly are. And if you are going to spend the entire time allocated to you between the birth and death of the body, simply trying to fulfill those profound needs through the agency of the body alone, that's not going to turn out very well, nor is it going to end very well. I was kind of pleased to be handed this topic, the journey of the soul, walking the spiritual path. This is an explanation, walking a spiritual path, of what the journey of the soul actually is. We are not saying that there is a requirement for people to abandon things connected with this body. Absolutely not. We are embodied, meaning we are spiritual persons that have taken on a body. And we should live with a profound sense of gratitude to have this opportunity, an opportunity for spiritual greatness, an opportunity for actual overwhelming happiness and joyfulness, an opportunity to fulfill the need for love. But in order for that to occur, we cannot live a life that is so biased, so skewed towards the body alone, with a complete denial of our spiritual existence. Just as the body needs nutrition, similarly the soul or the self needs nutrition. But it needs spiritual nutrition. The journey of the soul is the journey to discover your actual, deeper identity. Who are you underneath everything? It's always kind of unfortunate that people get opportunities. I mean, when somebody dies that we know very well, that we're close to, it's an opportunity to stop and really think about everything, about our own life. When we are confronted with misfortune, when we are confronted with unhappiness, it is an opportunity to ask, why do I feel this way? You guys know Kate Upton? She was like, I don't know, quite a few years ago, she became a real big internet sensation. She was really super curvy, beautiful woman that, made it. She became a YouTube, was it? Or I don't know, Instagram, something. Anyway, she became out there, and she became, she was invited, from obscurity, she was invited to become a swimsuit model on Sports Illustrated, the big American magazine. And she was like just so happy and so proud and like, wow. And I'm getting all this money and everybody's fussing over me and I'm getting so much acknowledgement, and I can flaunt. And she talked about in this interview that ever since she was a little girl, she really wanted that body. She said she used to pray for the boobs and the butt and, she just wanted it so badly. And she got it. And then here she is on the front of Sports Illustrated. But then she had this incredible reaction to how everybody reacted to that. All of these pervy men were just, fawning over her and propositioning her, and she just became overwhelmed with disgust. And she said that it's so sad and revolting and horrible that nobody sees me, they only see my body. Well, did it ever occur to you that when you stand around in that voluptuous form with hardly anything on, that you're going to elicit that kind of reaction? What did you expect? It's rather naive that you'd expect another type of reaction. But this was a profound realization that here you had all of these people. She had enormous amounts of attention, people gifting her and all this stuff. But she sees it as simply people out to exploit the package without any concern for the person within. And she felt lonely, and she almost had a nervous breakdown. And it's like, oh, this is fantastic. This is an opportunity for serious realization and a consideration of, okay, so how should I be directing my life? And she clearly saw that the package wasn't everything, that I was inside and nobody was seeing me. They're just looking at the exterior. But it doesn't last. Her, statements are very common. People struggle. People struggle with ideas of, am I lovable? Am I attractive? What is it I'm trying to attract when I want to be attractive? Attractive? Okay, what is it I'm trying to attract? We don't even think of it. We go through all these rituals and activities. Mirrors play an incredibly significant role in our ignorance. We look in the mirror and then try to do what we need to do with that thing that we see in order to become attractive. What is it we're trying to attract? We don't think about that. We just act on this really superficial level. But it is a really profound state of ignorance. There is a complete lack of recognition of my spiritual being. And the fact that my desires are emanating not from the body and the mind, but something way deeper. So I desire to become attractive because I want to attract love, actually. That's what I'm trying to attract. I'm trying to attract someone to love me. If anybody is overly fascinated with your body, they will not be able to love you. Those things don't go together. They actually don't go together. But we kind of don't figure that one out. When somebody is attracted to us and we get into a relationship, I hate the way that word's used. It's so fake and artificial. People have just forgotten how to be natural about stuff. And then I have expectations. That person has expectations. My expectations of that person are not fulfilled. Their expectations of me are not fulfilled. You cannot be the perfect person to love for anyone. You can't. And another person can't be a perfect person for you to love. It's a fantasy. Doesn't mean you cannot have deeply affectionate and caring relationships, loving relationships, but it can't be based on false ideas and notions. Anybody that's going to try to find their worthiness, their acceptability, their lovability in the body that they have on, I'm sorry, you are going to have a sad life. It doesn't last. Everything that used to stand up soon goes down, heading south. You get through youthfulness, and then it's just downhill all the way. And then there's just this never-ending battle for youthfulness, which you can never regain. And then there's all the fear and anxiety. Oh, I'm getting old now. This person won't love me anymore. I won't be attractive. I won't be lovable. I tell you, as soon as you get, whenever you're locked in to that false idea of the body as being the self, it is a formula for tremendous unhappiness, even suicide. Really. We have a great need for purpose. Actual purpose will come from being able to act in a way that is consistent or connected with our spiritual identity. The idea of caring for others, of compassion, of kindness, of actual true affection. These are all spiritual manifestations. They're not material things. And so the journey of the soul okay, I'll drop a bomb. You want a bomb? If you're not in shock already. You may not agree with this, and that's fine, no problem. You're not required to agree. You're not required to buy into this idea in order to engage in a spiritual process and lead a more spiritual life. Reality is, before you took birth, you've had previous lives. And after you die, you will go on living. You don't die, the body dies. You don't, you go on. And in this lifetime, all the things that we become deeply attached to and we think are so incredibly important and significant, all the stuff we're tearing our hair out over and crying about and fighting, at the moment of death, it ends. It's done. And you move on. You're out of there. So this thing that we are calling life is actually just like, we've just cut a little piece out of a really long movie. And looking at that doesn't tell you what the whole movie is about. Right? So this may be a little bit of a struggle for some people. Others might naturally think, okay, yeah, I can sort of handle that. This thing that we call life doesn't tell us the whole story. And it's not the whole story. The journey of the soul is, I'm going to go here. You know, in the ancient Vedic texts and many of the older religious and spiritual cultures, including Christianity up until about 300 AD, or now it's CE, isn't it? That shows you how old I am. They understood and accepted this idea of what's called transmigration of the soul, how the living being accepts many births and many deaths until such time as they actually become enlightened by the idea that this can't be the whole story. This time between my birth and my death of this body, is this the whole deal? For me, when I was a kid, I grew up in New Zealand in a little tiny town, like with 3,000 people. And I have no idea where these ideas came from. But I was thinking, like, what the hell is this all for? And when I started high school, I was thinking, like, what? You know, I'm just going to finish school and then I'm going to get some job or a professional career. Then I'm kind of probably going to get married and have some kids and then just grow old and then die. It's like, what? That kind of really spazzed me out. Is this the whole deal? You know, and the reality is it's not the whole deal. And the most wonderful thing that you can do for yourself is to begin the journey of the soul. To begin this journey of self-discovery, the journey of self-realization, and of course God-realization goes with the package. If you want to become happy, you know this guy Russell Brand, this very irreverent British comedian and whatever. That guy's hilarious. He's super intelligent, like super intelligent. And he got himself into a bad state with addictions. And he wanted to understand what's going on. Why does this happen? And one of the most profound realizations that he came to, and a lot of people will struggle with this idea, but it's really true and it's really important. He became he was drinking limitless amounts of alcohol. Every time he turned around here, he was downing alcohol. He was inhaling massive amounts of cocaine. I love cocaine. He was injecting heroin. I mean, it's like, what the hell? They're kind of like two opposite ends of the spectrum, heroin and cocaine. And of course, he engaged in unlimited amounts of sexual activity. Being very famous and wealthy and wild, he had, you know, limitless opportunity. And he said, here I am doing all this stuff which I find pleasurable, in vast quantities of things I'm consuming, but I feel suicidal. What's with that? And he said he came to the realization that to stimulate the body and the mind and to experience pleasure in the body and the mind is not connected to being happy. There's actually no connection. And we've been sold on the idea, and this is really what advertising is primarily focused on, that pleasurable experiences will deliver happiness. And this is why somebody can be a really famous star, everybody chanting their name. They can have fantastic looks, they can have massive amounts of money, they can have a beautiful voice or play, an instrument or some movie talent, acting ability, and have all those things and still feel utterly unfulfilled, totally incomplete, have a nervous breakdown because there is this disconnect. You can stimulate the body like crazy and still feel utterly empty inside. I remember reading a little while back a blog of a woman. She was a writer, highly successful professionally. She was highly successful. She had a fantastic husband, a partner. And she's describing in this blog, here I am lying next to my husband, and I can hear his breathing. And I'm cuddled up against him, and I can feel my own breath hitting his neck and bouncing back on me. I'm lying here in the middle of the night, feeling utterly alone. I don't know if you've had that experience. It's not uncommon at all. And she was questioning, why do I feel this way? And we know why they feel this way. If you completely neglect your actual self and you live a life completely absorbed only in that which is external and temporary, every time that your mind is not preoccupied when you are alone, you will feel lonely. You will feel unfulfilled. The journey of the soul is the journey of seeking complete fulfillment, true happiness, finding real purpose, and living a life of wonderful balance where the spiritual is not neglected, neither is the material. There is a balance, there is an acceptance and understanding. There is not an over-attachment, but there is no feeling of the need to run away from it either. This journey is the journey of actual spiritual realization. Talking about it is good, but it's not enough. Just talking about it doesn't bring you crystal clarity. We become deeply conditioned by these materialistic concepts. The thing that will transform us, the thing that will make a crack in the door and let the beams of actual light shine in to this dark space within, is the process of meditation. the actual, and I'm not talking about ideas of just stilling the mind or calming the mind. Actual meditation means when I take myself, the spiritual being, and my body, and I bathe it in that which is transcendental. Just as if your body, you've been out in the garden, or you've been running a marathon, or you're doing something and you're all sweaty and dirty, and you want to clean the body, you must bring the body into the presence of some medium to cleanse it. That medium being water. The process of meditation, and particularly the use of these spiritual sounds, has exactly the same effect upon your consciousness, on your heart. It cleans them. It begins to remove the veil so that you can see things with increasing clarity, that you can actually reconnect with your deeper spiritual being. In doing it, it is also the main form of spiritual nutrition for a starving soul or Atma. The nice people that have invited me here, this group of the Australian School of Meditation and Yoga, they are actually providing an authentic and very potent means of bringing this transformation about. One doesn't have to do a lot. What you have to do is quite small. But what is needed is that one actually begin to learn about and adopt a personal practice. You need balance. All the stuff that you're doing is all the stuff that's been foisted upon you and that you've bought into, and you're heading down this road to crash and burn, doesn't go anywhere. Just, it's heading for the cemetery. Yeah, it's true. I mean, everybody's got these big ideas. Oh, my life is going to be so extraordinary and it's just going to be so fantastic. Why do old people look like they're on such a bummer? Because they've already been through it. And everybody's kind of like, oh my God, been there, done that. Yeah, it was okay, but you know. Now look what's happened to me. Look at what I'm dealing with. So I do encourage you, if you have interest in this subject and interest in what it is that we've been speaking about, that you somehow put a bit of thought into reaching out to these folks and seeing if they can't, out of their kindness, share something of enormous value with you. These processes are incredibly ancient, and they have been handed down by individuals whose hearts were overflooded with compassion, who had no self-interest, don't want to gain or get anything from anyone, but want to see people's unhappiness come to an end. So I do encourage you to take the opportunity, if not immediately, at some point. Don't let time go by. And be old and decrepit and thinking, yeah, I should have done something about that. Don't live a life where you will have any regrets. And that will only occur if you live a life that is fundamentally spiritual, a life of compassion, of caring, a life of giving, not taking. I tell you, it's so unfortunate that the epitome of materialism is self-centeredness and selfishness, where it's all about me. It's all about the selfie. If we are going to be takers, our life will be very unhappy. And the more time that goes by and the older the body gets, the more unhappy it will become. If you are a giver, you will find peace. Because it is part of our inherent spiritual nature to be kind and to be giving, to be loving, to be sharing. That has to do with our deeper spiritual nature. It is only when the mind becomes corrupted by material conception that we become envious and selfish and become a taker. These are not just some wacky ideas or new agey thing or something. This is profoundly true. Social scientists know it. Okay, I probably overshot my time here. Don't see a clock anywhere. Was that okay? This is, please don't think that only you have to be special or more than ordinary to become a very spiritual person, to have realization, to actually become self-realized. That's not true. The spiritual process is about uncovering what has been covered up and lost to us. It's about uncovering our true and eternal spiritual nature and living that way. That is what the journey of spiritual seeking, the journey of the spiritual life or the spiritual path is about. This is the journey of the soul. To live true to your actual self, not the material covering and all of the corruption that lies there. Anybody have a question? Just checking how long I talk for. I really love this stuff. This stuff is amazing. It's fantastic. And when you see people go through transformation and change, and their life becomes so wonderful and purposeful, and there's joy, it's really exciting. And the things that we're talking about, we're just scratching the surface. We're not getting into the really far out stuff. What is spiritual love? What is the nature of profound spiritual happiness? What is that experience? How is it manifest? There's all kinds of stuff we haven't even touched yet. So please do consider and I hope and pray that at some point in your life, reflecting on what I've spoken to you about, that you will consider beginning this journey. So I think we good? So what we'll do is we'll chant a little, and then if after that, if people want to ask any more stuff, then feel free, come on up and we'll hang out and talk a little bit. So I will chant probably 2 of these mantras here. The Haribol, Nitai Gaur Haribol, written over there. And possibly the one underneath it, Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana. I ask you to, in this activity of this chanting, that consciously think that now I am taking a spiritual bath, immersing myself in something that is pure and transcendental, and allowing it to wash away all the unpleasant things from my heart and mind. Haribol, Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama 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 Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Thank you very much.